Roberts, our town clerk, had recorded a lot more argument and the young people had their say, everyone agreed to open a community center for all of Seacliff. A few nights later, I had some bookkeeping to do, and I forgot that Margaret's committee was going to meet at our house. My good friend Bert Collins was interested in their project. He tried to get me to join them, but I told him I didn't think I'd be much help. I felt they were putting community life too far ahead of family life. At any rate, that evening they wanted to decide exactly where to put their community center. I wanted to finish my books, but I guess I couldn't help overhearing them. Helen Clark wanted to know if the town should build a new building or buy an old house. She forgot we had too little money and a housing shortage as well. For a moment, I thought Margaret would offer our own house for the purpose. Well, that would solve their problem. And then Pete Clark, the lawyer, suggested the old Servicemen's Club, which was empty now and already owned by the town. Hey, that was an interesting idea. But then I remembered what bad shape that old place was in. Fixing it up would take a fortune. However, they liked the idea. I heard Bert say they could get started with the few $100s the town set aside every year for recreational purposes. I hadn't known about that money, but still it wasn't enough. At that point, I heard my son come in, and Joe Farrell, head of our veterans organization, got an idea. He explained the situation to Johnny and asked him if the young people in town would volunteer to fix up the old building. Well, Johnny didn't seem wildly enthusiastic, but he thought he and his friends might be willing. The group then felt that everything was all set. I knew they meant well, but I still felt they were going in the wrong direction. The place to start improving our town was right at home. How could the family ever come together if everyone was being pulled away from home by a community center? One Saturday soon after, Johnny and his friends began working on the old Servicemen's Club. I soon had to admit that at least the project was a healthier outlet for their energy than they'd had in the past. Margaret's committee had made sure the building was structurally safe and that it had enough electricity and water and fire exits. However, it hadn't been used for several years. And believe me, it presented just about the biggest house cleaning problem these young people had ever seen. I expected they'd soon lose their enthusiasm. That same kind of work certainly didn't appeal to them at home. My drugstore was nearly empty the day the boys and girls started to work on the community center. I had the first quiet day in years. In the weeks that followed, the young people seemed to chase around town a little less. The new project gave them a healthier opportunity to get together and to make new friends as well. There was no money for new furniture or decoration, so they fixed up almost everything themselves. They also hunted all over town for second-hand furnishings. I certainly didn't want to part with the very first chair that Margaret and I bought after we were married. However, Margaret was more than willing. It was her suggestion they take it. She reminded me that I'd put it in the attic years ago. Well, at least I'd kept it in the house. Seemed to me we might as well all move to the community center. As a matter of fact, it was good to know where our children were when they weren't at home or in school. We didn't worry about them so much. They were learning to work together and to use their individual talents to make something they all wanted. Their enthusiasm and energy appeared at home and spread all over town, too. Fundraising events were held to buy equipment for the center that couldn't be made or found. Kathy worked hard advertising the local dramatic club play, the cake sale at the church, and the firemen's band concert. I enjoyed most of all seeing more of my children at home. Many of my friends gave active support to the project. Tim O'Connor at the hardware store provided a bargain in paint supplies. More and more of my own customers got interested in what was going on down at the center. It was good to hear less about bad conditions in town. Margaret spent a lot of time working on the project, but I didn't object much. As a matter of fact, I began to feel that maybe the community center wasn't so bad in some ways, especially since Margaret and Bert's wife did so much of their work at our house. I enjoyed having more social life at home, even if I was put to work too. The day of the grand opening finally arrived. It seemed as if everyone was busy getting ready for the party. Decorations and food were being donated from all over town. I had a very slow day in the store. By the time my last customer left, I was feeling quite lonely. I was just closing up when in came Mrs. Brandt, one of my good friends and oldest clients. She wanted her old tonic prescription filled as usual. Why, that prescription went out with the horseless carriage, I told her. I bet I first filled it over 20 years ago. Nonsense, she replied. It was less than 10. Well, I'll prove I'm right, I said. Come with me and we'll look it up. Oh, how you talk, Fred, she said. Anyway, it's still good. I've got more pep than you have. I guess she was right there, but I won my bet. We discovered I first filled that prescription 2 days after I took over the store. And that was 25 years ago, almost to the day. 25 years. Things have certainly changed, I said. Ah, but people haven't changed, she replied. Well, I didn't agree with her. I felt people had changed too, in a way I didn't much like. We'd all lost something. Each other, perhaps. I wanted more than anything to spend that evening at home with my family. Then I remembered the family would be getting ready to go to the community center party. Guess I felt a little sorry for myself. I thought I'd earned a little of their time. Why, after all, I'd worked 25 years to make a home for them. But I decided I'd stay home that night anyway. Kathy had other plans for me. She told me to hurry and change my clothes or we'd be late. When she heard I wasn't going, she said I had to go. She'd just die if I didn't. But I told her I thought she'd last the night. Reinforcements arrived for Kathy.